Have you ever thought about what it would be like to grow food, really incredible food, by working with the soil instead of constantly fighting against it? Today, we're going to dive into this amazing idea called organic no-till farming. It's all about building healthy soil for a healthier planet. And it all starts with one simple but pretty profound question.
So the big question we're tackling is this: how can we possibly grow our food without constantly digging up and turning over the ground? I know, it sounds a little backwards, but as we're about to see, it might just be the key to a much smarter, more resilient way of farming. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with why farmers till in the first place, then explore the no-till solution. After that, we'll check out the super clever tools farmers are using, follow one farm's personal journey with it, and finally, we'll ask the big question: is this method actually practical?
All right, so let's kick things off with the way it's been done for centuries. For as long as we can remember, farming has pretty much always started with turning the soil. We call it tillage, but why even do it?
So what is tillage? Well, think of it as just prepping the soil for planting. It's the plowing, the digging, the rototilling. It's all about breaking up the earth to create a nice, smooth, clean slate for the new crops to grow in. And this is where we hit a snag. On one hand, tillage is great for getting rid of weeds and giving your seeds a clean start. But, and this is a big but, all that disturbance comes at a pretty steep price. It can cause precious topsoil to literally blow or wash away, and it completely wrecks the delicate structure of the soil, harming this vast, hidden universe of beneficial life, like fungi, that's supposed to be thriving down there.
Okay, so that's the problem, and that leads us to this really different way of thinking. What if, instead of trying to control the soil, we just left it alone? Let's explore this idea of no-till, a path that's all about preserving and building healthy soil from the ground up.
Now, you might think no-till is some new fringe concept. But get this, as far back as 2009, over a third of the cropland for major U.S. crops was already being managed this way, mainly to stop that soil erosion we were just talking about.
But here's the really crucial difference. Conventional no-till farming solves the weed problem by by using powerful herbicides. For organic farmers, who are totally committed to avoiding those chemicals, that's a non-starter. So they've got this huge puzzle to solve. How do you get all the amazing soil-saving benefits of no-till without relying on chemicals? And that's where the real creativity starts.
So, think about it. If you can't plow and you can't spray, how in the world do you stop weeds from completely taking over? Well, it turns out the answer is pretty amazing. You use nature's own toolkit.
The absolute star of the show in this system is something called a cover crop. Farmers will intentionally plant things like cereal rye or hairy vetch. They let it get super thick and dense, and then, right before they plant their main crop, they flatten it all down. What's left is this natural weed-blocking blanket of mulch, sitting right on top of the soil.
And this is what it actually looks like on the ground. This thick, straw-like layer is that cover crop we were talking about. It shades the soil, it keeps it moist, and it makes it really, really hard for weed seeds to get the sunlight they need to sprout. Okay, another tool in the toolbox, and this one is so simple it's brilliant, is tarping. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Farmers cover a bed with a heavy black plastic tarp for a few weeks. Without any sunlight, any little weeds that try to sprout just give up and die. So then, when they pull that tarp back, what they're left with is, just look at that, a perfectly clean, totally weed-free bed that's ready for planting. And they did it all without a single pass of a tiller. It's just an ingenious way to give their crops a major head start. So all of this sounds incredible in theory, right? But what does it actually look like for the people on the ground doing the hard work? Let's bring these ideas back down to earth with a real-world story of learning, experimenting, and a deep love for the soil. This quote here from the farmers at Broad Fork Farm in Nova Scotia, I think it just perfectly captures the spirit of this whole thing. It's not about following some rigid instruction manual. It's a journey. It's about paying attention, trying new things, and constantly learning from the land itself.
And believe me, that experimentation is super hands-on. Here you can see them trying out different ways to manage their cover crops. They're constantly tinkering to figure out what works best for their specific plants, their unique soil, and their local climate. It's a really personal and adaptive way to farm.
But what really drives all this hard work? It's a philosophy that goes so much deeper than just growing vegetables. It's captured perfectly in this quote from the legendary farmer Masanobu Fukuoka, which Broad Fork Farm lives by. The real goal is about what farming teaches us, about connection, patience, and becoming better caretakers of the earth.
This is all so inspiring, but you have to ask the practical question, right? Does it actually work consistently? Let's switch gears and see what the research and the data tell us about making organic no-till a real success. Well, it turns out scientific studies are really starting to back up what these farmers are discovering in the field. For instance, research from the University of Wisconsin tested a bunch of different cover crops and found that good old winter rye was the most reliable workhorse for creating that thick, weed-suppressing mulch.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. Researchers have found that it's not some magic wand you can just wave over any situation. They've pinpointed some clear keys to success. You need a really fit cover crop to start, a field that isn't already overrun with tough weeds, and good soil that drains well. It works especially great for transplanted seedlings or bigger seeded crops like beans and squash.
And it's just as important to know when this is not the right move. If you're fighting super invasive weeds, or you have heavy clay soil, or you're trying to plant tiny little seeds like carrots, this might not be your best bet. That thick mulch can also be like a 5-star hotel for slugs, and it can slow down how quickly the soil warms up in the spring, which is a big deal if you're trying to be the first one to the farmer's market.
So what all this really tells us is that organic no-till isn't a simple recipe you can just follow step by step. It's more of an advanced practice. It's about trading the brute force of a plow for the elegant complexity of biology. And that takes real skill and a whole lot of observation. In this picture right here, wow, it just perfectly shows the power of that approach. Underneath a tarp, weeds will still try to grow, but because they're starved of light, they just fade away. It's a perfect example of using a simple, natural principle to manage a farm with as little disturbance as possible.
Which, leaves us with one final big question to think about. In a world where the health of our soil is becoming more and more critical, could this deep dedication to preserving and building living soil be a real glimpse into the future of how we grow our food? It's a pretty powerful idea to cultivate.